I'm Amy Peck. My company is EndeavorVR. I work with primarily Fortune 500 companies on really leveraging this technology, getting those early wins, getting a POC, and really just building a cogent strategy to leverage this technology. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to all of you just to introduce yourselves. Oh, are you in a position? We are not insured if you fall off that chair, Chad. So let's be stable. Okay. Here, I'm going to hand this to you.
Okay. Chad Eikhoff. I'm with Trick3D. We're a visualization 3D animation company in Atlanta. We work as innovation partner primarily with enterprise companies as well. And then we'll get into the details of what all that means and how we did it with IHG here in a minute.
I'm McFarland. I am the director.
On there. No, you are not.
All right, start over. I'm McFarland. I'm the director of brand design programs for the Holiday Inn brand at InterContinental hotels.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jacqueline Diaz, and I'm the brand experience manager of Holiday Inn Americas at IHG.
Great. So I really just want to launch into the use case, but before we do that, how did you find each other? Because that's a big problem I hear in enterprise. How do we find the resources? Who are the platform partners? Who are the service providers? So how did you two find each other?
So give a little bit of background. We're a franchise company, so we had a need where we needed to have consistency throughout the Holiday Inn estate, and we had a lot of hotels that were coming up on their property improvement plans that would need a new design. And so we had the design created for our guest rooms, and we were going to mandate this across our entire estate. And we needed tools to be able to go out and sell it to the franchised owners to have it be mandated. So it's just a little bit of background of like why. And then Jacqueline really has been the leader on the IHG side to pioneer this and found Trick3D.
Yeah, so she hits a really good point. So historically, Holiday Inn hasn't mandated our design. And so with this new step of requiring design, we really needed to get the buy-in from our internal IHG stakeholders of approving our design and also our owners and helping them understand why to build it and getting them excited about building our solution. And using static images or renderings just wasn't getting the job done. So I started to look at other use cases and came across, we're an Atlanta-based company, and so is Delta and Trick3D. And when I looked internally into what Atlanta was doing, I found that the use case of Delta and Trick, and started to research and understand what they were doing and how they were leveraging VR to communicate their new planes. And I really thought that'd be a great opportunity to use this new virtual reality and bringing our owners immersive into this environment and helping them see what our design was going to be, and being able to do that helped develop the buy-in and help get us faster in getting this across the finish line. So that really is how we stumbled across Trick.
Yeah, and it's a great fit. So coming back to what Trick does, part of where we found a real opportunity for both us and enterprises is just moving the computer-generated 3D model from being a campaign asset up to being a brand asset. And that's what we have been doing with Delta, and it really proved out the use case. So once you do that, you're not just creating an experience for a marketing campaign or just for product design. You're creating an asset that can be leveraged across product design, marketing to all channels, and then potentially training. Every group's going to be a little different, and so Holiday Inn's use case was specific to them, but really could take advantage of that same concept.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to the next topic, which is if you can talk a little bit about that life cycle and your thought process, because it can be an expensive endeavor to bring this technology in. So how did you think about it, justify it, and then think about the life cycle of these digital assets?
Sure. So I think that when we first started, it was very specific for a need, but as people within our company saw like the output of it and started to see how many different valuables that we could apply this to. So even though it just started as a tool that we were going to go out and we were going to educate our owners, and it became a tool that our development team can now use to get new owners, so it's a growth model for us. It's something that we hope to in the future go out with consumers to be able to show them what we're doing through marketing or through research, and then possibly training as well.
Yeah, and to elaborate on that, one of the aha moments was, again, now having this required design, we needed to build a virtual environment to help communicate our design. But that was just the beginning of it, because we also understood that there's the CGI asset that goes throughout that we could leverage and repurpose, not only from a communication tool, but taking it the next step and designing with it, because we're all about continuous improvement. And once we get a design out the door, we of course want to continue making it best for our guest. And now having that the virtual environment with Trick3D, we can now go straight to them and upload assets with them and see in real time and iterate and design faster. So that saves us as a company money and helps build that ROI story. But also it brings value to our owners and our stakeholders, because we can iterate and bring things to life faster. And that's just one facet. When you look at our entire journey, we're communicating with it, we're designing with it. But the next phase where I see the biggest opportunity is in training. I've been listening a lot to what you guys are talking about, and getting that consistent message to our owners and to our guests and to the people in our hotel staff. That's really the next best opportunity, is getting it into their hands and helping them visualize the environment, but also helping them teach the messaging consistently across our portfolio.
That makes me very happy. Simulation and training. I mean, because it's always about the ROI, right? And how are we measuring that? What are the metrics? And simulation and training, has been used by the military for decades. I mean, and we can measure it. And so in thinking about the ROI, let's go back a little bit into the internal process, because I know that this is one of the challenges that all organizations face, is that there are varying degrees of understanding about what this technology can do. One of the greatest parts of my job is putting people through VR for the very first time, because the reaction's incredible. You simply can't articulate what that experience is like until you're in it. So can you talk a little bit about what that journey was like for your company internally?
Yeah, I think one of the uses that we've used it for is our owner conference. Since we are a franchised environment, proving out ROI for the individual franchise owners is very important, and being able to showcase our design. So historically, our conferences, we've built out a literal model room on the trade show floor, and we've done that in a variety of ways, where we've just built it out using union labor, which is really expensive, all the way to putting it in a shipping container and shipping it across the country and plopping it on a trade show floor. So this past year, we were able to not have to do all of this work, spend all of this money on conference, and we created this virtual reality environment where the owners were actually using the goggles and being able to see the guest room. And now we have an asset that we can repurpose outside of conference, and it's not just getting donated to Habitat for Humanity. So
that's great. And actually, they touched on that a little bit in the panel prior, kind of this notion of presence and being able to hold virtual meetings and saving all of us. I'm literally, my bag is downstairs, and I'm going directly to the airport. I'm going to New York, so it's sort of saving that. And I'd also like to hear a little bit more from Chad again on how you articulate the value proposition to some of your clients.
Yeah, it's been we've been doing it for 5 years, so it's we've learned a lot of challenges along the way, and part of how to communicate that. And really, a strong advocate who internally kind of sees the value is a big bonus. It usually does currently still start with a specific problem to solve, and then you start to talk about how that expands across the company. I think what's going to start to happen is the C-suite's going to start understanding more and more of that, because really the conversation in the past in VR has been, what is it? Is it going to be a real consumer device? How do I use it to create marketing assets? And that's the way people have been thinking about it, which isn't really the best way to think about AR or VR. Those are just channels that are access to a virtual world, but they provide real benefits in terms of problem solving across all different parts of an enterprise. And so when you start talking about that, most people get it, the biggest challenge is still no organization is really set up that way with their budgets. So if you're talking about products, you're talking to one group. You're talking about marketing, you're talking to another group. You're talking about training, you're talking to another group. And they all are working with different partners who are already doing some form of 3D or interactive or something. So, so yeah, bringing all those pieces of the puzzle together is really, it's a little bit of a time management of like how do we navigate this company. So it's still not just a one-stop discussion to have, but
yeah, no, that's interesting too, because I guess it is part of the challenge is everyone's looking at every other department going, well, no, this should come out of your budget. So did you have a little bit of that? You know, it's new terrain. So who's going to pay for this?
I can definitely elaborate on that. So it's budget aside, the other challenges is just that this is so new. It's education and helping people understand what VR and AR is, because there's just a lot of hesitation about, I have to put a headset on, I have to get on this environment, is it going to make me sick? So the more cases we get out there and the more we start training and seeing kids use it in school, and it becomes more integrated in our lives, it's going to be an easier hump to overcome. But it's definitely getting that buy-in and helping people understand what AR and VR is, and then also helping build. You need the value proposition, like Chad was saying, finding that problem that you can solve, and not just saying that it's a VR, AR tool. It's really talking about how you can help them drive that ROI and repurposing that asset throughout multiple phases of any type of process that the enterprise is doing. So helping them see that value proposition, helping them understand the problem that you're solving will help you get that budget, because then you're building that case in of, yes, we're spending this money up front, but we're able to repurpose this and save money long term in either a photo shoot or a communication tool. There's other assets that you can leverage in it. So helping build that story and that value proposition really helps you overcome that budget perspective.
that's actually, when you mentioned the photo shoot one, it's one of the strong ones for us because everyone knows what photo shoots are. Everyone knows that that's part of their budget already. And a lot of people, that's a little unique to us. Like, we come from a very photorealistic, high-end, like virtual rendering process for commercial film entertainment, and then applied that to enterprise. So when we do photo shoots, it's indistinguishable from a real photo, and that's a real direct problem that you can say, hey, there's money to be saved. You're flying people all the way across the world to do shoots with different parts of the world, and every big company struggles with that. And then it's also part of other clients, like with Delta, like they have to take a plane out of the sky to do a photo shoot. There's different problems across different organizations in just that one. So we found that's a pretty direct, if you get there, and it's a little unique, because if you start with VR, and that's it, it's kind of hard to get to the photorealistic level. But if you start with the photorealistic marketing asset model, which is the pipeline we've set up, and then propagate that to AR and VR and interactive and anything else that's applicable, that's an easy one to kind of get people to understand, and it's pretty. So.
It's a real example from yesterday, because we have them working on a scope for some renderings for us, because it's end of year and we don't have time to do a photo shoot, and we don't want to take hotel rooms out of commission and hire talent and everything. So they're actually really working on this for us right now.
That's great. And you both have sort of touched on this. Listening to you, it often is a single evangelist within a company, and this is again another great win. It's an example of how one person had the vision, researched the technology, came up with the right partner, and pitched it. And did you get to put anybody through VR for the first time at your company?
We have had lots of owners for the first time. I mean, like she mentioned, we had our conference in Las Vegas, and it was that honest, but we also have an owner advisory board that we have to meet with throughout the year and help them get buy into what we're doing. And about 5-6 months ago, we had this OA, and I brought it in for the first time, and seeing these these gentlemen put this on, and just their faces and their excitement, and then being like, wow, and this is beautiful. So once you actually, they were hesitant at first, but then getting them to experience it and seeing that they didn't get sick, they didn't run into anything, and they came out okay, and still got to see the environment real time. It was exciting not only for us, but for them, because then their mind started clicking, I want this as a sales tool, I can start using this for my guests. So again, once they got to see and they believe it, they now get the vision, and they're coming back to me and they're like, Jacqueline, where is this application so I can give it to my hotel team? So it's really getting them to experience it is where you get that buy-in.
That's great. I'd love to hear that story. You want to add that?
I was just, it's no small feat actually, because a lot of people are adamantly on when you get to the executive level, like, I'm not putting that thing on.
Well, we all look great in those headsets. I don't know why. I'd love to also really, you touched on it, right? Moving forward, you can use it as a sales tool, you can use it as a training tool. Where are you thinking to go next with the technology?
So our next project is going to be around our open lobby concept. So we've only done the guest room so far, and so, as a hotel, you have to have a full concept and design. So we're designing an open lobby concept right now, and for 2018 we'll be putting that into virtual reality as well, so that you can experience every single experience that you would experience in the hotel. I think also with guest research, so we're doing some guest research later this year to understand what is the continuous improvement plan for the guest room. Even though it's a managed design, we have 3 choices on every single thing, so there's lots of flexibility within the design format. So not every single hotel room is going to be exactly the same when you come in, but they'll all feel the same. So we understand from our guests what they like, what they don't, all the way down to fabric patterns. And so that's something that's really easy. Instead of us having to buy everything and put it into our warehouse and understand what it looks like and what it feels like, we're able to now digitally render it into CGI and have our guests in our online panel tell us what they really think about it.
And that's just one opportunity. Another one, like I touched on, is with the guest room, we had already worked with a design firm to create the guest room, but now that we have the environment built, again, we're going to be continuously improving with it. So we're actually going to be working with Trick and our in-house design team and actually designing directly with Trick and seeing things in real time. So we'll be able to iterate faster, and I'm hoping we can get this next guest room launched a lot faster. I'm thinking we could shave off months of time frames and just getting the stakeholders' approvals, because they can turn things around so fast. We don't have to wait as long as samples and procuring things. So that's one facet, designing. And then again, I keep hitting on the training aspect and getting out that consistent message. That's really what I get excited the most about, is because visiting hotels and listening to teams, it's all about, well, what is the brand? How do I deliver this? And the best way to do that is by showing and being able to give them that in a virtual environment, having my VP or our SVP go to Trick's warehouse, sit in a green screen and talk, and then have that output into a virtual environment and push that out to hotel teams all across the US and the world. That is a great opportunity that I see is the next biggest thing for us.
It's also a really good catch-all, too, to see if the design's working. Because one of the examples we have from guest rooms, we have this movable table. And when they were doing the renderings, the chair doesn't fit under the table. So instead of, it takes 16 weeks when you order this from China to get over and then to see it and have everybody review it. And that would be devastating to have 200 tables that would be reordered. So it was like a great catch for us during the design process.
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge cost saving.
Yes.
And it was only a ½ inch, but ½ inch matters.
½ inch matters.
It's funny when you guys, I've learned so much. Melissa said last night at dinner, she goes, I build the real thing, you can build the virtual thing. And I love that, because you learn from each other in that process. And something like that's like outrageous. I'm like, okay, why would you ever wait that long? Like, why don't you try this? And you're like, well, we don't do that in the real thing. And so many of us just sort of think what we assume is happening. Like, I assume that there are all these efficiencies in place because you know the technology's there. Most companies don't have them implemented yet. They're still really running on, we work with a lot of architects and home builders as well, and product design with different companies. And a lot of them in that design process are just getting watercolors, like sort of photoshopped up pencil sketches, and then they order the real thing and they find out it doesn't fit. And that's still just how most people are working. So there's a lot of room for innovation, and to me, companies like IHG, and specifically with Holiday Inn in this case, that's to me the exact way to innovate. There's a lot of companies who are claiming innovation by just doing a VR marketing experience, and those are sort of one and done experiences, whereas this is really ingraining inside the company and finding things that solve problems with the tool sets. And it's not just VR for VR's sake or to claim a VR for PR win. It's actually changing business process for the better, which I think is, you know, you guys are one of the forefronts of. So
we reuse the assets a lot in every way imaginable. So like through renovation toolkits, whether it's needing renderings for photo shoots. Hopefully it'll go up on our websites once we have more of the hotels that are actually on like the guest room design. But if there can be a way that we're going to use it, that's how we're going to grow the value of it.
Do you want to?
Yeah, and just he touched on a big thing. IHG is a large corporation, and we're a Holiday Inn brand within that. And one of our goals is, again, to drive ROI and be innovative. And so we as a team are constantly looking for new solutions. So for you startups out there, it's don't be afraid, reach out to these large enterprises, because don't assume, like Chad said, that we are working efficiently, because we are a large matrix organization and it takes time to get change throughout there. But again, we're constantly wanting to be innovative and stay ahead of our competitors and in the industry. So we're constantly looking for new partners and looking for new use cases and how to streamline and be more efficient.
Yeah, it's a perfect segue into that, because we were saying that's where we approach the model into any enterprise, is once you build it, what can you do with it? And that you start to find those problems. And there are so many opportunities to plug in other technologies into that mix. So, you know, when you get to training, there are very specific skill sets inside of training that partnering with people on makes sense. You know, we were just poked our heads on the IBM Watson thing, so technologies that can layer into what can we do with the technology we have that assists IHG and other clients is, yeah, definitely open to that.
No, and that was a great point too. As much as it's often, you know, one or two evangelists within the company, it is hard for, you know, startups who are building great solutions to get access to enterprise. So, you know, I encourage those companies to get on committees like the VRARA, you know, come to these events. You know, you'll be available for a few minutes to talk to people. You might get inundated now. but no, but it's like, you know, it's a nascent industry, and we need to help each other, you know, bubble up these great, you know, great companies who are ready to innovate and pair them with, you know, these, you know, programmers who are building great solutions and really solving problems. So one last question before we take some questions from the audience. What do you want to see in the future? What do you really, really, you know, personally, and we've talked a little bit about the company, but where do you see this taking us? A quick answer, because I know people have some questions.
I keep harping on this. My favorite application, what I want to see, is full integration in our lives. Like, we are on the go constantly, and so how can we get AR and VR to make us more efficient as a company and streamline things? And I get most excited about the training aspect, because again, education and getting people to understand your message from a brand and your brand proposition is the hardest thing. We're headquarters in Atlanta, so we don't get to get out in the field and see our hotel teams all the time. So I'm most excited from being able to get a consistent message into our hotel staff and our owners and operators.
I think with the lobby initiative that we're going to do next year, I think there's a lot of application with the meeting space and how we can sell meetings better with this tool.
Yeah, for me there's, I mean, obviously a lot the way we go into it. One specific one would be trying to take the isolation out of VR and put multiple people into it. So big people like Facebook are working on that, but you know, we have created different forms of collaboration tools, but one would be like a virtual camera for photography, so you can go in and find your camera shots in the virtual set. Adding multiple people into that virtual collaboration, NVIDIA just launched a piece that's really interesting. As we start to do that so that we can collaborate inside of a virtual space, that will be good too.
You're cut off.
We have a few minutes. Does anyone have any questions?
So this is a more tactical question, but you spoke to how difficult it is to take a vision and communicate it to a team, just the value prop of this in the first place. How do you communicate between each other before we have a rendering? Yeah, I mean, your team has the digital chops, but you're not actually architects, right? So how do you take the vision from an architect and a designer, turn it into something digital, and then iterate on that? That's the real complicated thing, right? It's like, well, then we want to change the design. What's that cycle look like, the feedback loop?
It's an interesting one because it depends on the architect sometimes. We've been working with different architects throughout our entire existence, and they all, like, some are so nuanced that it's infuriating because they'll be like, yeah, the strip next to the door is about probably a centimeter off, and you're like, oh my god, at this phase we're not talking about that detail, back off. And then you find the frustration that is for clients, because they're like, I just wanted to see what it looked like black instead of silver. Like, I don't care about it. And so there's an element of kind of getting in there and just playing nice with both. Like, I don't want to design it, but I can flip it from black to silver pretty quick for you. And so getting that quick iteration to the client on the front end, so that actually when they go to the architect, they have more information that they can share of what they want is part of it. And then you're in that sort of feedback loop to what, like, as you described it, is right, where the architect, depending on who they are, if they're cool sharing the CAD files, which most really are, you know, it's not taking away their work, it's just adding a little sort of like detour road that loops it back into them with more information from the client.
I think for us, you also have to educate the architect on why we want to go with Trick3D in a virtual environment before we go with, like, their renderings, and having it is more of like a triangle than it is a line for feedback. So we empower the architect and the designers to work directly with Trick3D on those things, so that the client doesn't have to be in between. And we're seeing it just like we would in their feedback loop as it comes out, and they're actually approving it before we actually see it. For the guest room, we're already in the design phase, and so our designers that are internal, we actually go down to Trick3D's office, and they've already pre-scanned fabrics in for us, and we tell them, like, okay, this is the 100 different ways we're going to look at it, and we just pay for like a day fee, and we're able to sit there with the designer, with the brand team and everything, and be able to pick out what we want, and it's a lot more efficient for us.
That's great. Linda, did you have a question?
Yeah, your enthusiasm is great. Really appreciate what you bring to this. I'm really curious about whether you can share specific quantitative metrics that your bosses track in order to gauge the success you had on the trade show floor with the potential owners and the existing owners. What was being measured and monitored to gauge whether the investment was worth it?
A lot of it's feedback, because
So not quantity.
I mean, there's not like a formal, survey or anything that we send out, but I'll tell you, we've built the guest room out twice now for 2 different years, and then this was our first year doing virtual, and we've gotten a lot of great feedback on it. I think just the saving cost measure of it was a huge, driver of that.
How much did you save?
I'd have to look that up. I don't know.
Give
But
ballpark.
probably hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Fantastic.
There we go.
So,
There we go.
That's
the story we want to hear.
Yeah.
but I mean, we would have to go and do analysis 3 years deep on, what that is.
In
But
other words, don't
just
quote
being
me.
able to, exactly. But just being able to use the asset afterwards is the hugest thing, because everything else was throwaway work before. And then, the other quantitative.
Well, they do, so after the conference they do an engagement survey, but it's more a very generic, like, how was the conference, were you satisfied? And so we look at those metrics, but we don't specifically we did not ask about how was this one application used in our booth. But again, just harping on historically, as a company, they've been okay with building out entire environments and then donating everything, all the furniture you think of an environment. So that one metric of just the cost savings of saying we don't have to build out an entire environment, we can do it virtually, and then we can actually reuse it again. That one value proposition right there was like, let's do it, let's do the proof of concept, let's see it, and that's where we are now. So
Thank you.
that's it.
Well done.
Yeah, those are like the real deal business ones that you're looking for, but I would just add to me a takeaway that's real positive on the use of VR for that is the feedback that you were getting was on the room. It wasn't saying, hey, I couldn't tell what was going on in that room. It was actually, I was able to see the room and give you the feedback that you're looking for in a holistic way. And so that, to me, is actually what you want the technology to do, just disappear and actually prove it.
And building out multiple rooms versus we only did one room before. In virtual, we were able to build out four environments. So.
Wait, how are we doing on time?
Oh, I said 5 minutes, like 5 minutes
we
ago.
did. Okay. Sorry. let's do one more from
Very
Greenlight.
cool question, because it's designing a future guest experience. Are you integrating voice user interfaces into your rooms? Like Alexa or Google Home?
Not on the Holiday Inn brand. There's other brands within IHG that have been piloting that, but not on our specific design.
That's great. I want to thank my panel today because these are the stories that we need to have out there, and thank all of you. Thank you. This is our last panel here. I think there's one last one across the way. Again, really want to thank Greenlight Insights for putting this together. This was a fantastic event, and Accenture for being one of the main sponsors. And thank you all for joining us today. Thank you.